books that can protect women, raising the minimum wage. So we're going to kind of sift through this and go through all of this and kind of give you a preview of what to expect maybe politically over the course of the next 12 months or so. I also want to say hello to everyone out there watching on the Occupy Democrats Network. We're also broadcasting on YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Twitter. We're all over the place, and we're going to have some fun today. We're going to talk a lot of serious topics. Let me start with this topic because it's the breaking news that I didn't see this coming this morning, and that is Claudine Gay resigning as the president of Harvard University. If you don't know this story or you don't remember the story, you had these three presidents of these three different universities that were asked about anti-Semitism, and they were asked, if you basically call for the genocide of Jews, does that break Harvard rule protocol, and could those students be expelled? And the answers that really all three of the presidents gave were pretty bad. And I am not a defender of Stepanik, because if you want to talk about hatred, racism, and anti-Semitism, she's an enabler of Donald Trump. So she has zero credibility. And I know she's using this as, she being some sort of champion for Jewish people. She's not. Okay, she's not. I'm not here to talk about Stepanik because I think she's a complete moron. But with that being said, the question was a fair question. And the way these three Harvard presidents, or I should say these three university presidents answered the question was embarrassing. I don't feel bad for Claudine Gay. I'm sure she probably got a great severance package. When you are asked a specific question, in this case about genocide of a group of people, in this case Jewish people, and you say context is important, no ma'am. There is no context here. If somebody is calling for the genocide of any group of people, they should not be at Harvard University, and it shouldn't be tolerated at any university across the country. I don't feel bad for Claudine Gay. I'm sure she was forced out, a lot of pressure, and this is not the only controversy with her. She was also plagiarizing. Apparently, there's a plagiarizing scandal very similar to Melania Trump, if you remember the speech that she stole from Michelle Obama, and then she blamed everybody else but herself for it. Plagiarizing is very serious, especially at the college level at Harvard University. Claudine Gay should not be a president of any university. I don't care what her skin color is. I don't care if she's a woman or a man. That, to me, that is completely irrelevant to this conversation. And yes, I understand why some people on the left are upset, because it seems like white anger and convenient anger from the Stepaniks of the world and the people on the right, because Donald Trump can spew his bigotry and they don't have a problem with that. But then when Claudine Gay doesn't answer a question properly, they're upset at that. I totally get that. It's hypocrisy. But I try to be honest, and I try to be upfront, and I try to be consistent on this show. And I don't care whether Claudine Gay is a Democrat or a Republican. I don't care whether she's a woman or a man or both. I don't care what the color of her skin is. The way she answered that question, or the lack of her answering that question, is embarrassing. To me, just as embarrassing as what Nikki Haley did last week when she didn't know why the Civil War started and she didn't mention the word slavery. They're both embarrassing. They can't happen. We're not talking about water cooler talk. We're not talking about, a conversation with friends. We're talking about somebody running for president of the United States, and we're talking about somebody that is the president of the Ivy League school in Harvard University. You can't answer a question like that. So in short, I am totally okay with Claudine Gay resigning. I think that's the right move to make. And for people out there that are saying that, it happened because she's black, or she's black and she's a woman, I completely disagree with that. Completely. And there was already a woman who happens to be white at another university who also stepped down for not answering the question properly. So to me, this story has nothing to do with skin color or the fact that she was a woman or the first black president, which is a great thing, by the way. But she screwed it up. She's the one who screwed it up. She's the one who deserved to lose her job. So it's very simple. When you're calling for the genocide of any group of people, it should be called out, and we need to stop saying, well, context. It's the context. No, it's not the context. When you call for a group of people to be all, I would imagine, genocide, all murdered, it can no longer be tolerated. But congratulations to Joe Biden and the Biden administration, and congratulations to those in the Israeli government, because the second in command of Hamas has been killed. And that is a good thing. And we all, as a world, should be celebrating that, unless you're anti-Semitic. That is a good thing. You probably won't hear a lot about that story on Fox News. You won't hear a lot about that story on Newsmax or OAN. But that is a good story, and I'm happy to report that. Now, at the same time, We're now entering 2024, and less than a year before the elections take place. And in my personal opinion, this next 10 months or so, 11 months or so are going to be wild. They're going to be crazy. It's probably going to be the craziest 10 or 11 months in political history in this country. And, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, right? Is Donald Trump going to be a convicted felon? I say yes. He's facing 91 felony counts. But what is more mesmerizing than anything else is the way Fox News handles this. The way people on the far right, MAGA Republicans, handle this. So I want to play you a little bit of audio, if I may. So this is a group of people on Fox News over the weekend talking about Donald Trump, talking about how he's a favorite to beat Joe Biden, which, by the way, if you look at some polls, that's not necessarily true. But I want you to listen to what this panel is talking about and the developments or what could take place with these indictments and these 91 felonies, because it is absolutely mesmerizing to me. Have a listen to this conversation on Fox News.
Mar and others who tend to be on the left, which is that you're feeding into his narrative. And that's why I still think it's his to lose. And I think that by the time we get through the first three and we get to Super Tuesday, it's going to be Donald Trump likely left standing.
All right. So what happens if he's indicted at some point?
He can be president from jail if he has to. But
That's right.
I think to your point, Paul, despite all of the threats, despite all the charges, Republicans are still rallying around Donald Trump. And even if they stoop so low out of fear.
I don't even know where to begin with that. He can be president from jail if he has to. This is supposed to be the law and order party. Last I checked, Republicans still call themselves the law and order party, which, by the way, we know they're not. When you have a bunch of candidates that raise their hand when they're asked the question, will you still support Donald Trump if he's a convicted felon? And most of them raise their hand, yes. There's nothing law and order about that. There are actual anchors and paid contributors on Fox News, like you just heard, that say, hey, he can run the country behind bars if he has to. Are you kidding me? This is the train of thought from so many Republicans on the extreme right today. Not every Republican feels that way, but you actually have people on Fox News that are okay with that. And they want to talk about Hunter Biden's laptop. And they want to talk about a $200,000 legal loan that Joe Biden gave his brother that his brother paid him back on. That's what they want to talk about. They want to talk about the possibility that maybe at some point, maybe unknown to Joe Biden, that he was speaking to one of his son's business associates. These are the, the types of things that Republicans have been focused on lately. But if Donald Trump is a convicted felon, which he will be, and it's proven in a court of law, which it will be, because Jack Smith is not messing around, and many of the others that have put forth these indictments and these 91 felony counts, Republicans will be a champion for their leader. Many Republicans out there, the overwhelming majority of them. And it's so interesting to me because there's so much hatred out there and we are so divided as a country. Yesterday, I went to a party, a poker party, if you will. I went to somebody's house and I had never been to the house before. It was kind of a friend of a friend. And as I walk to the front door, I see these signs that say Trump Pence everywhere. By the way, a lot of Republicans wouldn't support Mike Pence these days either, especially if you're a MAGA supporter. But that's here nor there. And I walk in the door, and there are people at this party that have so much hatred for Joe Biden. And listen, I'm not saying there's not a lot of people that have hatred for Donald Trump either. I'm one of them. But I think to myself, if you don't like Joe Biden's policies, that's fine. But I just try to understand, and I try to pick people's brain, and I try to figure out, if you don't like some of Joe Biden's policies, that's fine. But why would you have such hatred for Joe Biden? What has he done personally in his life that you say, wow, what a really bad guy? How could it be anywhere comparable to Donald Trump? And I get it, ladies and gentlemen. I know that most of the country, including myself, don't want to see Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. I've made it very clear. It's not even an afterthought to me. If it's Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, I vote for Joe Biden in a heartbeat. As much as I don't like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., because I think he's a conspiracy theorist, I would still vote for him over Donald Trump as well. It's a very low bar. I can't stand Ron DeSantis. Nikki Haley, with her screw-ups over the course of the last week, I'm not a Vivek Ramaswamy guy. And I don't want any of those people to be president of the United States. I think they're all dangerous, but I would still vote for one of them maybe over Donald Trump if I had to. But I try to dissect people's brains because the next 12 months are going to be interesting is one way to put it. I don't understand the vile hatred that people have for Joe Biden. Why? Oh, well, he shut my businesses down during COVID. No, he didn't. I get that all the time. First of all, the governors of states in this country were in charge of the shutdowns. Many of them, by the way, Republicans. People don't know what they're talking about. They're uneducated. They want to blame Joe Biden for gas prices. By the way, they've been on the way down. They want to blame Joe Biden for inflation. 96% of the world has been dealing with inflation. They want to blame Joe Biden for things that are completely out of his control. Now, if you want to put some blame on Joe Biden for the border crisis, my position on that is very simple. If you want to blame Joe Biden for everything that's happening at our borders, then I want you to tell me how many people entered this country illegally under Donald Trump. I want you to tell me how many people entered this country illegally under George W. Bush. You see, because the answer is quite clear. While you can make the claim, and it would be true, that there are more people crossing the border illegally now than there were under the Trump administration, there were still plenty of people crossing the border illegally under Donald Trump, and we were coming out of COVID. So there's a lot of different factors there as well. This isn't a Democrat problem. It's not a Joe Biden problem. It's not a Donald Trump problem. It's an American problem. We've had issues at our border for decades and decades and decades and decades. But the reason why Republicans talk about it every second of every day today, if they're not talking about drag queen reading and they're not talking about transgenders, the reason why is because they need something to attack Joe Biden and blame him for. You would think if you listened to MAGA Republicans that we didn't have anybody dying of drug overdoses and we didn't have any fentanyl coming across the border under Donald Trump. By the way, that's not true. But you didn't hear that during the Donald Trump days. Over 300,000 Americans, let me repeat, over 300,000 Americans died of drug overdoses under the Donald Trump administration. Do I blame Donald Trump for that? No, I don't. But those same people who didn't say a peep when all those innocent Americans died from drug overdoses are the same people that are blaming Joe Biden for every fentanyl overdose. You see, because these Republicans, particularly these MAGA Republicans today, don't have any solutions. They blame Joe Biden for everything. Could be the border. Could be gas prices, inflation, you name it. They'll blame Joe Biden for everything. But they don't have any solutions. None. Zero. They'll say still that the election was stolen, which it wasn't. So there's a reason why Republicans have lost the popular vote 6 of the last 7 presidential elections. And by the way, if it wasn't for the Electoral College, I don't think a Republican would ever win the presidency ever again. The Electoral College only helps one party, and that's Republicans. Don't even get me started with the Electoral College. So, listen, I don't know what's going to happen here in the next 12 months. I can make some predictions, and I can tell you this. And things could definitely change over the course of the next 12 months. My opinions can change. I've been wrong about one presidential election my entire life, and that was in 2016. So I don't pay too much attention to polls, but I will tell you this. I don't believe that there are a lot of people in this country. There are some, but I don't believe there are a lot of people in this country that voted for Joe Biden in 2020 that now all of a sudden are saying, hey, I think I'm going to vote for that orange guy in 2024. There might be some, but I don't think there's a lot. And I don't think there's enough for Donald Trump to win in 2024. Doesn't mean I'm not worried. Doesn't mean that it can't happen, because it certainly can. I just don't think it will happen. There's a difference. Now, a lot can change here over the course of the next 11 months or so. But if you ask me right now, what do I think is going to happen? I believe Joe Biden is going to be reelected. Do I think he's too old? Do I think that we should probably get some people younger in there to be candidates? Do I think over the age of 70 is probably too old to be president? Yes, I do. If you have to be at least 35 years old, I think you should be under the age of 70. Now, that's just my personal opinion, but it won't even be an afterthought for me. I will vote for Joe Biden in a heartbeat. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy. 99% of the reason why I would never vote for Donald Trump, 99% of it has nothing to do with politics. It has everything to do with the human being. And I vote very differently than everybody else. No, I don't think Joe Biden is a bad guy. I have respect for him. I have respect for his wife. I don't think Joe Biden is a bad guy. In fact, I'd go the opposite. He's a pretty darn good guy. I think he's a man of respect. And I do have a lot of respect for Joe Biden. I think he's a man of empathy. I do think he cares about people. I do think he's a good father. I do think he's a good husband. And that's important to me. I can disagree with policy. I don't care whether you have an R or a D next to your name. That's the way I vote. I vote for people that I think are decent human beings. I think Mitt Romney is a decent human being. I disagree with Liz Cheney on 99% of what she has voted on in her career. But I will take Liz Cheney over Donald Trump any day of the week because she's on the right side of history. And she was willing to put her political career behind doing the right thing. And I respect her for that. Adam Kinzinger is another one. There are Republicans in office today that are on the right side of history. Better late than ever, but I would put Chris Christie on that list as well because he calls out Donald Trump for who he is. And many of the MAGA Republicans out there want to boo Chris Christie because they are complicit and they don't want to look at the actual facts. They would rather talk about Hunter Biden's laptop. They would rather talk about a private citizen. Don't want to talk about Jared Kushner. Don't want to talk about the over $2 billion he got from the Saudi government. No, they don't want to talk about that. But they want to talk about Hunter Biden and his PP, and they want to talk about Hunter Biden's laptop. This is where the MAGA Republican Party is at today, and it's not changing. I get this question every single day. Brian, when is this MAGA stuff going to end? When Donald Trump is not on the earth anymore. I don't know what else to tell you. Donald Trump's not going away. Even if he doesn't win the presidency in 2024, he's not going away. You know, and I dissected some brains yesterday, these Trump supporters and their vile hatred towards Joe Biden. And I asked them, I say, what policy did Joe Biden implement that you just, and I'll use your term, hate? And again, they say, oh, I don't like the gas prices. I say, okay, you don't like something, but that's not a policy. And they can't name me a policy. They can't be specific. They can't give me an actual policy that they disagree with when it comes to Donald Trump. And then well, what did he do good? They'll say to me. And I list a bunch of things because I do my homework, whether it's the infrastructure bill that was bipartisan or new gun laws that were put on the books or getting health care to our brave men and women in uniform that are having lung issues. You name it. I can go down the list of accomplishments that Joe Biden has done just 3 years into his presidency. And they're dumbfounded. They don't know what to say. The bottom line is this, ladies and gentlemen. Barack Obama left Donald Trump with a really good economy. Things were pretty darn good. Did Donald Trump destroy the economy? No, he didn't. But the response that he had for COVID was horrendous. In one of the richest countries in the world, the response was terrible. I don't blame Donald Trump for COVID. I blame him for the response, which was awful. And in his coronavirus press conferences, 15 cases down to 0. It'll be gone by Easter. Americans listened to that, and sadly, a portion of this country still listens to every single word that Donald Trump says. Every single word. And a lot of people died because of that. And it's very unfortunate. Heading into this year, I'm glad that COVID is almost diminished. Yes, I understand there are still variants out there, nowhere near as bad as it was a few years ago. That's a good thing. I appreciate the fact that the unemployment rate is the lowest it's been in 50 years. That's a good thing. And Republicans will use an excuse. Oh, those are just COVID jobs, which is, by the way, not true. I appreciate the fact that gas prices have continually gone down. They haven't gone down across the world. They've gone down in this country. Inflation going down. Unemployment rate way down. And there are some good things heading into this year that I do want to talk to you guys about before I open up the phone lines. But if you do want to call in, you can right now. 702-221-SAVE. That number, if you do want to be a part of the conversation, 702-221-7283. That number one more time, 702-221-7283. Heading into this year in 2024, gender-affirming care is a big topic of discussion. It seems to be a big topic of discussion among Republicans. So this is definitely one of the marquee issues. There's no question about that. And across state legislatures, gender-affirming care for minors, there are several Republican-led states moving to enact restrictions on that. They don't want to put restrictions on guns. They don't want to put restrictions on assault weapons. Nothing with guns, but they want to put age restrictions on gender-affirming care. Now, there are a range of evidence-based treatments and approaches that benefit transgenders and non-binary people, but Republicans want to avoid that evidence and that proof. The types of care obviously vary by age, and they're considered the standard of care by many mainstream medical associations. So among the states that have moved to pass a ban on treatments for minors are Idaho and Louisiana. And the bans took effect actually yesterday. Very similar to abortion in some aspects of this. And let me try to explain what I mean by that. You know, in some states, if a woman can't get an abortion, she has to actually be inconvenienced after making that very difficult decision and has to travel to another state. So if you're a parent, and let's just say your son is 17 years old, which, by the way, I think is more than old enough to be able to decide whether you want to have this surgery or not. After you've spoken to all the physicians, and you've spoken to psychologists, and you've spoken to experts, and your parents are okay with it, guess what? In Idaho and Louisiana, that 17-year-old cannot have that transgender surgery. Can't do it. So that individual with their family would probably have to go to another state to get this surgery done. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine if you had a surgery, and I think some would consider this to be a serious surgery, and it's hard enough that you have to go through this, but now the Republican politicians that are running your state say, you can't have the surgery, we're going to get involved. Nope, sorry. Can't do it here in Idaho. Can't do it here in Louisiana. I find that to be so disgusting and disturbing. But these are the main issues that Republicans are focused on. Gender-affirming care. They say they claim that they care about your kids. They claim that they care about innocent children. What have they done when it comes to gun control? What have they done when it comes to affordable health care? The answer is nothing. In fact, they've made it worse. There are Republican governors that have made it easier for felons to get their hands on guns. Oh, Brian, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, go ahead and look at what Ron DeSantis passed a few months ago. 8 years after somebody commits a felony, they're allowed to purchase a gun. And don't even get me started with the concealed carry stuff that DeSantis passed. DeSantis, Abbott, and many Republicans are making it easier for people to get their hands on guns. What would Republicans say if Democrats were passing laws making it easier for transgender surgery? What would Republicans say about that? And by the way, I don't think transgender surgery is killing anywhere near the amount of people that gun violence in this country has. But this is on the list. And sadly, in 2024, this is what we're talking about. Gender-affirming care, Republicans taking it away in Idaho and Louisiana. It's very sad. It's very disturbing. Abortion protections. So there are several near total bans in Republican-led states that took effect last year in 2023. Many blue states have passed laws protecting abortion rights, which I can appreciate, including two that took effect yesterday. Washington state law attempts to make abortion procedures more accessible with changes to insurance coverage. That is a good thing. Most of this country, most of us, over 60%, both Republicans and Democrats, believe that a woman should have the right to choose. It doesn't mean that Democrats are jumping on trampolines and are so happy when a woman gets an abortion. That's not what we're talking about here. If you listen to Republicans, that's what they would lead you to believe. And it's not true. What I am a champion for is giving a woman the right to choose. It doesn't mean I am for late-term abortion. I want women to be responsible, of course, but we all make mistakes. I want a woman to choose what she does with her own body. I felt the same way about the vaccines. Now, I'm not spreading medical misinformation. I was listening to the radio the other day, and a right-wing nut job is on the air saying that these athletes are dropping dead left and right for the vaccines. That's a lie. And how general managers and program directors can allow that garbage to be put on the air is beyond me. They don't care. I would never make a statement like that. I think the vaccines overwhelmingly are very safe. and saved millions of lives. But I've never looked anybody in the eye and said, you have to get a vaccine. You should be forced to get a vaccine. I never agreed with mandates. But the reason why I'm bringing that up is I don't think the government should interfere in our lives to the extent of telling us what to do with our own bodies. I've always felt that way. And guess what? That includes, gender affirming care. That includes vaccinations. I've always felt that way, and I've always been consistent on that. Here's some really good news, though, and I want to get your thoughts on this as well in 2024. Nearly half of all the U.S. states will increase their minimum wage in 2024. I think that's a good thing, but I have some mixed feelings on this. Let me just give you kind of the rundown here. And I said half the states, so I'm not going to name every one of them. Every state's different, right? It's more expensive to live in certain states than it is in others. I think we all could agree on that. So Florida's minimum wage will go up on September 30th. Nevada and Oregon have increases set for July 1st. Washington will continue to have the highest minimum wage of all states. That's $16.28. Hey, that's pretty good. Let me tell you something, man. I know it's more expensive to live there, but if I'm a 16-year-old and my first job is working at a fast food restaurant and I'm making $16 an hour, that's a lot of money. And that's, by the way, up from $15.74. Hawaii will see the largest increase in its minimum wage from $12 to $14. Good for them. Now, Washington, D.C. will continue to have the highest minimum wage in the country at just over $17 an hour. And that's slightly up from last summer when it was $17 an hour. So here's my opinion on this. The argument you hear, and usually it's from people on the right, again, let's not help the poor. Republicans, let's not help raise minimum wage. You hear that from a lot of people on the right. They're against practically any government program that can help people that are struggling. Welfare, food stamps, you name it. It's my biggest frustration with Republicans. They call themselves pro-life, but once that baby is born, they're pretty much against every government program that would help that baby and help that maybe single mother raise that child. They're hypocrites. Here's one thing I will say, though. I think minimum wage should be different in every state, of course, and I don't have a problem with that because every state is different. Some states are much more expensive to live than other states, right? If you're looking for a one-bedroom apartment in Nevada, it's going to be a lot cheaper, even though the prices have gone up. It's still going to be a lot cheaper for the most part than if you're living in LA or if you're living in New York, right? The argument I hear from some on the right are if you raise minimum wage, it's going to hurt small business. And here's my response to that. If you can't afford to pay your employees $13, $14, $15 an hour, then maybe you shouldn't own a small business because it's not working. So I don't think that this is going to hurt small business at all. You need to pay people livable wages. Not everybody can go to college. And I think $14 an hour, $15 an hour, while it's still not a ton of money, it's probably enough, hopefully, for you to get by and maybe find something better down the road. But I don't have a problem with these raises in minimum wage for the most part. If you're 16 years old and you're making $16 an hour with not a lot of responsibility at a fast food restaurant, I don't know how I feel about that. Maybe age should get involved. I don't know if that would ever work, but for the most part, I don't have a problem with the raises of minimum wage. I don't. As far as student loan payments go, it may affect how much people are able to save for retirement, but starting yesterday, a new retirement law allows student loan payments to boost 401ks for some workers, which I think is great. Under this new law, Secure 2.0 it's called, employers can match their employees' qualifying student loan payments with a contribution into the employee's employer-sponsored retirement account. I don't actually have a problem with that at all. So I just named you some important laws that are being passed that were already passed yesterday in 2024. Some abortion protection rights for women across this country. I am for that 150%. I would never want to tell a woman what to do with her body, but why is it that there are so many people on the far right, these MAGA Republicans, that call these women murderers? It's disgusting. And it needs to stop. That rhetoric needs to stop. This is actually where I agree with Nikki Haley, even though I disagree with her on her pro-life stance. She's moderate on this issue, meaning she knows that if she becomes president, which, by the way, she won't, but if she does become president, she can't ban abortion nationwide. But let's start with things that most of the country agree on, which is giving the woman the right to choose. But let's talk about late-term abortion. Let's come up with some answers that Republicans and Democrats could agree on. I don't have a problem with that at all. Like I said, I don't have a problem with the raises in minimum wage either. The gender-affirming care, I think it's disgusting that you're going to tell parents what to do with their kids. You're going to tell parents. I thought Republicans wanted to be less government. That's what I thought, but I guess I was wrong, because now they want the government to tell you how to deal with your kids who want gender-affirming care. I just think it's absolutely disgusting. Stay out of my life. Stay out of my kid's life. Leave us alone. As long as we're not breaking the law, leave us alone. And this person might be listening to the show right now, but he's on my Facebook friends list. And he put up a post the other day that I thought was so bigoted in nature. He put up a post that said, if you're telling me your kid is getting transgender surgery, or your kid is a transgender, then you're not invited in my home. And I'm thinking to myself, is that where we are now as society? Is that where we are? What's next? If you're gay, you're not invited in my house either? I just feel like it's such a bigoted view. And there are so many people that judge other people because they might be different than them. It's so bigoted. Shocker, by the way, that this person is a Trump supporter. What a shocker. Is that where we are now in society? I feel bad for that person's kids. They are being taught at a very young age that it's okay to be a bigot. And part of that is Donald Trump's fault, because I believe he made these people more comfortable in their bigotry. And I just told that person, and I said, well, guess what? You're not invited in my home if you're a bigot. It's a bigoted view. You can disagree with how another person lives their life. If you want to be judgmental on other people, go ahead, but don't treat them differently. You can believe that in your head, but don't treat people differently because they might be different than you, because their sexuality might be different than you, because maybe somebody in their family is transgender. It's so disgusting. Listen, I can't fathom that. I'm not transgender. I never would get that surgery. So I can't comprehend or understand what that feels like. But I feel sorry for those people, and I want those people to feel good. I want those people to be able to do what they want to do with their body. I would never tell them what to do. I get it. It's a conversation for debate if you're pre-puberty, if you're 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. I understand that. But you're telling me in some of these Republican-led states, in Idaho and Louisiana, that you're going to tell a 17-year-old what to do with their body? If their parents are okay with it and they've gotten and seeked professional help, you're going to ban somebody for having that surgery? It's absurd, and it's ridiculous, and it's wrong. So here's what we are going to do. We've covered a lot of bases here in the first segment of this show. I do want to open up the phone lines before we take a break, and here's what we're going to do, and here's what I'm talking about. So in the first segment, we talked a little bit about a preview, and I'll do a little bit more when we come back in 2024 politically, what we're going to see, and I'll give a few more predictions, okay? But we talked a little bit about 2024 new laws that have been implemented, some by Republicans, some by Democrats. Talked a little bit about the upcoming year, what we are going to see, who's going to win the presidency, what is Donald Trump's MAGA base going to do if he's indicted. I played you a clip from Fox News where you had some anchors saying, well, listen, Donald Trump can run the country behind bars. What do you think is going to happen over the next year? I want to hear your political predictions. I want to hear from you, and I want you to call in, and I want you to tell me, what are your predictions for 2024? What do you think is going to happen over the course of the next 11 months or so? What do you think about some of these new laws that have been implemented by some Republicans, some by Democrats? Gender-affirming care. What do you think about these Republican-led states that have implemented law that have taken effect yesterday? Louisiana and Idaho not allowing anybody under the age of 18 to get gender-affirming care. What do you think about that? What is going to be the status of the Ukraine war at the end of this year? Is Vladimir Putin still going to be president, of Russia? What is going to be happening in Gaza a year from now? I want to hear your predictions when it comes to MAGA Republicans, Donald Trump. Will the Donald Trump era be over at the end of 2024? That and much, much more. So I want to get your thoughts on that. I'm going to give out the number once again before we take a break. 702-221-7283. And again, that number, if you would like to be a part of the program, 702-221-7283 is the number to call. You know what? before we take a break, why don't we get right to the phone calls, because the phone lines are lighting up, and I definitely want to take some phone calls. So why don't we do that first? All right, we're going to go straight to the calls. Yodis, is it? Do I have that name correct? Yodis is first up on Pushing the Limits. Hello, Yodis. What's going on?
Hey, my prediction is that Trump will lose. A lot of people think he'll be disqualified, but I think he'll end up being on the ballot, and he's not going to win any states that he lost last time around. But I do think he'll lose a state or two surprisingly.
Mm-hmm.
He will also impact all the down vote ballots, which include people like Kerry Lake.
Right.
Who end up losing marvelously.
Yeah.
I just don't think any of the laws. I'm going to take the perspective of a Republican and say, they always say none of the gun control laws work, and if somebody wants an abortion or somebody wants gender care affirming surgery, no law is going to stop them from getting it. So, you make it harder on people, but if people want to do it, they're going to do it anyway.
Right.
I found out over the last 20 years that no matter what law you write, it's never enforced. So the enforcement piece is what they always kind of complain about, like weaponization and not being able to enforce certain laws. And I think that's kind of their talking point. But like you said, no solutions. But with those talking points, we can complain, and it sounds like we're doing something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
go ahead.
They
Yep.
retain the majorities, and I think they do win the House by a slight margin as well.
Yeah, so I think I agree with most of what you said there, and probably all of it. Let me ask you a question. Would it surprise you if Donald Trump won? Because we agree, I still think that Joe Biden wins re-election. Would it surprise you if Donald Trump won? And my second part of that question is, if he does lose, which we both agree that he hopefully and probably will, what do you think the MAGA base is going to do? And you think we'll see another insurrection?
I already know, regardless of whether he wins or loses. So I'm going to just state this publicly. I've been following elections for like 20 years, and they never are going to declare a winner the night of the election. Very rarely, unless
Correct.
it's a landslide.
Correct.
But I do think that they set it up as like, hey, we're being cheated because even if they lose, that's going to be the excuse. Personally, I don't think it's going to be decided again. I'd be surprised if he wins because he lost by a large margin. And I don't see a lot of people saying all of a sudden, hey, he's the guy who's going to fix our problems.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's going to be a bigger margin. I think more people who are registering to vote, and you see it everywhere. They're trying to stop people from, voting, and that's kind of their plan. Whether it be like through ballot initiatives or whether it just be like through intimidation. I think that. Yeah, if he wins, it'd be crazy. I thought the first time if he won, it'd be crazy too. But
Yeah,
he did. But
so did I.
I don't think people are like, hey, man, I'm one of those people who doesn't really care for the guy. I have a lot of friends who are Republicans who say he's a moron, but like they'll vote for him over Biden. But secretly, I feel like they go into the voting booth and vote for Biden because they don't want to.
You might be right. That's a good point. Yeah. Isn't that, what? You just made a really good point. I don't think some of these Republicans are being honest with us. I think behind closed doors, they're not voting for Trump. That's my opinion.
But my big concern, man, is who votes people like Lauren Boebert in? Really
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah. How are these idiots getting voted in? Did you hear that Lauren Boebert, now she went to another district because the Democrat that's running against her, he's gotten like 10 times the money that she's raised, and now she's going to another district. Shame on anybody that would vote for a complete imbecile like Lauren Boebert.
I mean, my thing is, politicians are politicians. They're really good when they can lie and make you do things that you don't want to do as a voter. But the amount of stupidity in Republican voters. I'm not a wealthy guy by any means.
Yep.
But you know what? I'm not a poor person telling them.
Yeah.
Other people that the government.
Well, you know what, Yodis? Regardless of whether they have money or not, Donald Trump said it himself. He loves the uneducated because that's Donald Trump's base. And you are not one of those people. You're a smart dude, and I appreciate you calling in, and I want you to call back anytime. Okay, Yodis? And by the way, I hope you're right.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. I hope we're right about the 2024 elections, my friend. Good to hear from you, Yodis. Thank you, sir, for the phone call. Appreciate you. 702-221-7283. I think we're going to Joseph next. Why don't we do Joseph next? 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Joseph, are you there, sir?
Hey, how you doing?
Doing good, man. What's on your mind, Joseph?
That's good. So, what is it? Short-term
I was able to get in.
Sure.
I was scrolling across YouTube and saw your live, and from what I gather, it seems as though you're basically talking about the election that's going to be coming up.
Yeah, I mean, Joseph, what I'm just quickly, and then you got the floor here. I'm trying to give a preview of what I think is going to happen here over the course of the next year. I think it's going to be a crazy political year, Joseph, and I think we both could probably agree on that. And that's pretty much what I'm doing. And I talked a little bit about the new laws that were implemented yesterday, a little bit about the abortion laws, a little bit about minimum wage, gender care, that sort of stuff.
Oh, well, that's crazy. I got a quick answer on that for sure.
Yep.
I personally believe that, this year will be pretty crazy. But it almost makes me think as though it's going to end up going ahead and going to Congress in terms of who ends up going ahead and getting elected. Makes me think of what happened in 1824 with Andrew Jackson.
Right.
And
Well, I this is what I fear. I don't know if you're with me on this, Joseph, but here's what I fear. I fear another insurrection. I fear violence. I believe there is a base to the MAGA Republicans out there that is very, very violent. I believe there's a base, I'm not saying every Trump supporter is like this, of a white supremacist violent element. I know if you ask Tucker Carlson, he would probably tell you that the idea of white supremacy is a hoax. It's not. I fear another January 6th. It's scary. And I don't know what's going to happen here. I do believe Donald Trump is going to be a convicted felon. And there is a portion of this country, Republicans, that actually would be okay with their president being a convicted felon. Joseph, I don't know how to talk to these people.
I think that the problem that we may have within society today is the concept of articulation.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I think that people just the more that you talk to them, the more you realize that they probably don't have critical thinking skills.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, I believe that there is certainly a portion of the MAGA base that you just can't convince one way or another, and they're not educated on the issues. And then there's another portion of MAGA supporters that are educated on the issues, but they hate Joe Biden and they hate Democrats so much that you can't change their mind on anything. You just can't. Yeah, what are you going to do, Joseph? I deal with these people every day, my friend. I'm glad you're not one of them, okay? You too. All right, my friend. You take care, Joseph. Happy New Year. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. All right, Julie is going to be next on Pushing the Limits. Hello, Julie.
Hi, Brian. How you doing today?
I am doing good, Julie. How are you?
Good, thank you. Brian, regarding the hormonal and the gender-affirming treatment, remember that I am a nurse. The hormonal therapy has a lot of psychological health that are unknown. Sweden has stopped, many countries in Europe have stopped these therapies because hormonal therapies are very, very dangerous.
I thought you just said it was I thought you just said it was unknown. So it's not unknown then, you're saying. Which is it? Is it?
How are you going to push a therapy that is unknown, Brian?
Okay, so you're saying that it's dangerous, and now you're saying it's unknown. Which one is it? Which one is it? Okay, so it's not unknown. You're claiming that it's dangerous. Okay, where are you getting that information from?
Psychological health.
Are you aware of all the teenagers out there that have committed suicide because of gender dysphoria? Do you have any idea how many children out there?
I have been working with
Okay.
people.
Would you characterize that as dangerous?
With kids, let me finish because I'm a nurse and this is my field.
Okay,
I've been treating kids on hormonal treatment, right? And after the hormonal treatment, they are still suicidal.
Okay, so you're claiming that all the treatments that you've given the kids, they all are still suicidal after the transgender the transgender or the hormonal treatment. Is that what you're claiming? That every single person?
That is correct.
So okay, so let's go with that for a moment because you're the only person in the medical field that I've ever heard say this. Hold on. I just want to be clear on this because I, with all due respect, Julie, I'm not sure if I believe you, but you're claiming that every single child that you've given hormonal treatment to, gender for gender, whatever you'd call it. Every single person, they're just as bad as they were before they got the treatment. Is that what you're claiming? And how many of these people have you treated?
Exactly. It's bone mineral density. Okay.
How many have you done this to? And how do you know they're still suicidal?
Hormone therapy. Even women who are taking hormone therapy,
Okay.
they need to go to a bone density test.
Julie, last I checked, nurses are not. Where are you a nurse? Are you a nurse in a hospital? Where are you a nurse? Is it a hospital? Is it?
That's not to be disclosed.
No, it actually is important. It actually is important because I want to make sure you're actually in the medical field because I have no evidence that you're actually a nurse. I don't want you to share. Okay, Julie, what type of nurse are you? Because what type of nurse are you? So you're okay.
I'm a pediatric nurse. I am a pediatric nurse.
Okay, and how many people have you treated? How many children? I didn't ask you if. Okay, I didn't ask you if. Okay, so since 2009, how many children? Okay, I didn't ask you how long. I wanted.
How many patients? I cannot count on my patients.
Okay.
Imagine
Okay. Is it hundreds? Is it hundreds? Is it thousands? Can you give me an idea?
Brian, do you know that all medications have
I'm going to ask you the question again because I'm going to ask you the. Okay, no. I'm responding to the fact that you're not being specific and answering my questions, claiming you're a medical nurse.
name for me one hormonal treatment.
Okay.
A name.
You don't answer my question with a question. I'm trying to have a conversation. No, you're not listening to me. You're claiming you're a nurse. Hold on, Julie, let's back up. You're claiming you're a nurse. When you don't answer my questions when you don't answer my questions directly, it leads me to believe that you might not be telling the truth. So I'm going to give you another chance. How many of these patients have you personally treated for gender affirming treatment? Why can't you give me an answer? I'm not asking for a direct number, but a vicinity. Since you claim that you've been.
Over 100 kids.
Okay, okay, let's start with that. Okay, so if you claim that you've done this to over 100 kids, have you given them, you're also a therapist, and you know for a fact that every single one of those kids was just as suicidal as they were before, after you gave them the treatment? As a nurse, I thought it was your job not to be a psychologist or a therapist. It was your job to administer drugs. So my question to you is, how do you know that these kids are still suicidal? Are you having 30-minute sessions with them and their parents? Are you having discussions with them? How would you know that, Julie, if you're a nurse?
Because they are receiving mental health care. Brian,
I didn't ask you if they were receiving mental health care. Are you the one as a nurse that gives them mental health care? No, don't Brian me. I'm asking, Julie, we're going to go back to what, Julie, we're going to go back to what we started with. You're claiming, which is a lie, by the way, that all these kids as a nurse, and I don't know if you are or not, I'll try to give you the benefit of the doubt. You're claiming that you've administered these types of drugs to over 100 kids. You're claiming that all these, drugs that you've given these kids for gender affirming care, they're all suicidal. That's your quote, not mine. As a nurse, it's not your job to be a therapist. You're not having therapy sessions with them and their kids. So I'm going to ask you the same question again, which you failed to answer. How would you know that they're still suicidal? Why won't you answer that question?
do my assessment because I do my assessment as a nurse. That's one of my questions.
You don't have 30 minutes therapy sessions with them. You're claiming that every single one of those kids.
I have more than an hour doing my assessment. Head to toe.
So you're telling me, I want to just be clear on this because I think what you're saying is not truthful and it's dishonest. You're saying, okay, well, you claim. You're also the same person, by the way, that claims Donald Trump won the 2020 election. So don't go telling me that you're mistruthful and misfact, okay?
So don't mix. Don't.
Oh, no, I do. Oh, no, I do. Guess what? Let me ask you a question. If I told you that the earth was flat, would you listen to what I have to say about anything? Because that's what you do. You say Donald Trump won the 2020 election. You claim that which is ridiculous, you claim that every single child that has got gender care gender affirming care is suicidal. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And quite frankly, I'm scared that you're a nurse. And I'd love to know where you work. And I wonder if your bosses, and I think it's cowardly that you call into this show and you won't tell me what hospital you work at, yet you're claiming that every single gender affirming medication that you give a child, they're suicidal. It's a lie, and you would be fired for that if your boss knew that you were calling into radio shows and spreading medical misinformation. Now, are there some kids out there that it might have a negative effect? Sure. Are there some kids out there that might still be suicidal? Sure. I wouldn't doubt that. But when you make a general claim, which is so outrageous, the fact that you claim that you're a nurse, I'm going to assume you are, which is scary, that every single child that has gotten gender affirming care, every single child is somehow still suicidal, is a blatant lie. You know how I know it's a lie? Because I know parents, and I talk to parents with kids that have had the gender surgery, that are transgender, and they're not suicidal. And that's how I know that you're lying, and you're wrong.
Yes, they are suicidal because I do my head-to-toe assessment, including...
Okay, what was your, right, just like the assessment you did that Donald Trump won the 2020 election, right, Julie?
You want to talk about the...
No, I want to talk about how you don't know what you're talking about. You did an assessment that, yeah, was it, yes, really. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I know more than you. Donald Trump, I'm doing a psychoanalyzation right now, and I think you're a psycho. I just did my analyzation. I just did my assessment of you. What do you think about that? Donald Trump did not win the 2020 election, and yes, I think you're a little psycho.
Yes, absolutely. That's
Okay, we agree. Let's end the. No. I can disagree. I can disagree with people. This is what it's about, Julie. You're the problem. Just because you disagree that some kids and parents are allowing their kids to have transgender surgery, because you disagree with it, you're on this radio station right now spreading medical misinformation. You're making the outrageous and ridiculous claim that every single child that gets gender affirming care is suicidal. It is a lie, and you are a liar. And the fact that you are a nurse is shameful. It's shameful that you're a nurse. You have no idea what you're talking about. I think somebody abused you when you were a kid. Have a nice day, Julie. I'm not going to listen to medical misinformation on the air. If you disagree with gender affirming care, that's okay. We can have that conversation. But you are lying on the radio. And by the way, I don't even know if you're a nurse or not. Quite frankly, anybody that's administering serious drugs to anybody that claims that Donald Trump won the 2020 election is not somebody, see, this is my assessment, not somebody that should be in the medical field, Julie. You have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, and you're spreading lies on the radio, and it's disgraceful. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Again, 702-221-SAVE is the number to call. I believe we have Carl up next. Or no, Roy. Is it Roy or Roy? Let's go to Carl. All right, we'll go to Carl. Carl, what's going on, man?
Hello?
Yeah, hi, Carl. What's going on, buddy?
I think she's right, though, in one way. Any kid or child that would have an analysis section with her would commit suicide.
That is kind of funny. I got to be honest with you, though. Somebody in the medical field that has some of those opinions is really, really scary. It's really scary, and I don't know how you feel about that. But yeah, it's bad.
I have a professional opinion about that, and I'm telling you, the woman is definitely psycho, as you say. There's something definitely wrong with her. But anyway, you remember the old movie, The Wolf of Wall Street?
I do, yeah. Very Leonardo DiCaprio. Yep. Oh, The Wolf of Wall Street. Yeah, that's a different one. Yep. Yeah. Michael Douglas. Yep.
Michael Douglas said, "Greed is good."
Yes.
Well, Trump appeals to his base with something very similar. I think you saw that. He says, "Hate is good."
Well, I got to tell you, I'm glad that Julie calls into this show because it's a perfect example of what I am talking about. Julie is one of those MAGA Republicans who believes that every child that has gender-affirming care is suicidal and it doesn't help any child. Julie is very dangerous because, and by the way, I can't confirm that she's a nurse. I hope she's not, quite frankly. But she claims that every single child that she's given these drugs to is suicidal. Now, I know that that's a lie because I know many people that have had these surgeries done, and even Whoops! What happened? We got somebody else on the line there. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Carl. Go ahead.
Well, actually, a lot of the kids and children who don't have the surgery can be suicidal. It's just the reverse
Yeah.
of that.
No, you're right.
It's not the ones who, yeah. It's
You're right.
the ones who don't get it, who are so conflicted in their life because of what they are and what they want.
Yeah.
They have a suicidal tendency.
Yeah.
The ones who get it have
Yeah.
finally gotten something they wanted.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong though. I mean, the person that thinks that Donald Trump won the 2020 election, I'm sure she's being very accurate when she talks about gender affirming care. Carl, I got to yeah.
He did he won the election in Russia.
Yeah. He probably did. You're right. Carl, it's good to hear from you, my friend. Happy New Year. Good to hear from you, sir. Thank you. We are going to go to Roy next, I believe. I believe Roy is next on the line. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you would like to be a part of the conversation. Do we have Roy next on the line? Roy, what's going on?
Hi, Brian.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good, Roy.
First thing is, if I had listened to her as long as you did, I would become suicidal. Aside from that, you got to be real careful today on what state you decide to live in, what state you decide to go to school in.
Yeah.
Because it really does make a difference. And a lot of these states, although a lot of the states have different laws, I mean, we are still the United States. You really need to have laws that are consistent throughout the country on certain things.
I agree.
And, like, these types of things are one of them.
Yeah.
As far as the election goes, I think more people vote against Donald Trump than vote for Joe Biden. I think the last election, a lot of Joe won, and I'm glad he won and I voted for him. But I think a lot of people just vote against Trump. I mean, the man is crazy.
So I agree with everything you just said. By the way, I'm one of those people. And when I hear the argument, how did Joe Biden get 80 million votes? You know, I get that argument all the time. And I say, because of people like me. And they say, well, what do you mean? Are you a liberal? I say, no, I'm not. I'm a registered independent. I'm somebody that didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. By the way, I admit that was a mistake, a big one. I'm somebody,
I thought he would surround himself with intelligent people and try and do the right thing.
Yeah, he certainly didn't. Yeah, well, you know what? It takes a man to admit you were wrong, and we were both wrong. But, you know, I tell people the reason why Joe Biden won in 2020, and I personally believe, and I think you'll agree with me, the reason why Joe Biden will win in 2024 is because of people like us. You know, people that, as much as we might not think Joe Biden is the perfect candidate or the right guy, maybe, but we would certainly choose him over Donald Trump. It's more of an anti-Donald Trump vote. And it's not because we have Trump derangement syndrome. It's because they have Trump fellatio syndrome. That's the way I respond to them.
But, you know, part of the problem is, you know, these words, you can't fix stupid.
You can't.
So many people who support him, they don't even know half the things this man has said. I mean, for example, he also talked about drinking chlorine,
Yeah, chloroform.
pandemic.
And then he said the next day it was a joke. And nobody was laughing in that room. He is unfit to be president. Besides the fact that I believe he will be a convicted felon. I don't know how many felons he'll be convicted of, but he's going to be a convicted felon. And yet there are still Republicans in this country that would still vote for him. They're still going to support him, whether he's a convicted felon or not. What does that say about the Republican Party?
Frightening.
It is. It is, right?
Again, the only thing that's going to save this country long term is term limits on everything, from the Supreme Court down to the presidency. Well, the presidency has it, but the Senate, the House, we need term limits.
Oh, you're right.
Have people who can go with the flow and change and not support someone because they're afraid they're going to lose their job.
Sure.
And that
Sure.
will take a lot of that crap away.
I agree. I'm with you.
Yep. The electoral college got to go.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll tell you right now, if the electoral college goes, then so does the Republican Party. I'm telling you right now. Yeah. Roy, good to hear from you, my friend. Happy New Year. Yes. Thank you, sir. Good to hear from you. You too. 702-221-72. I believe Obi's next. Why don't we go to Obi next? 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Again, that number, 702-221-SAVE, even though I can't promise I can save all of you. 702-221-7283. Obi's next. Obi, what's going on?
Happy New Year, Brian.
Happy New Year, Obi. What's on your mind today?
Well, let me tell you about Julie. Julie is not a nurse. She's a trained practitioner.
Oh, you know her?
Oh, commander-in-chief. You know, that's my title for him.
Well, she definitely is a cultist. And by the way, hey, Obi, what a shocker that a MAGA supporter from Miami, all due respect to Miami and Vanilla Ice, who, by the way, performed at Mar-a-Lago over the weekend. What a shocker that a MAGA supporter would call into this show and lie. Obi, I just can't believe it because they all seem like such honest people.
Well, they are hard-working people, but they fell into the crowd, and they
Yeah.
can't get out of it, and they
Yeah.
insist. Because remember, Brian, if you repeat it, it becomes an absolute truth.
Yeah.
You know that.
I won the election in a landslide. The Democrats cheated. I won the election in a landslide. And now all these MAGA supporters believe it. They believe every word that this orange man says.
No, listen to me. We don't have to worry about that because there are, like you said before, I heard you when you said that there are some Republicans that are lying. They are not saying publicly how they feel, but
Right.
they know they're not going to vote for him. So I'm not worried. This is going to be Biden 2024.
How?
They're going to claim again that they were solid.
But I got to tell you, I agree, Obi. I got to tell you why it's so dangerous. People like Julie are dangerous. Now, I would assume, and I could be wrong, that this Julie character does not have a huge platform. However, there are people on social media. It could be Donald Trump. It could be, Charlie Kirk or Candace Owens. There are people with huge platforms that spread lies about a lot of different things. It could be the election. It could be about transgender surgery. And people like Julie believe it. They believe it. And they believe it so much so that they'd be willing to call into a radio show, lie about what they do as an occupation, blatantly lie, and make a claim that is so unfounded and so ridiculous, like every child that gets transgender surgery is suicidal. Now, any reasonable person with an IQ over 20 knows that that's not true. Are there some kids out there? Sure, absolutely. But when you make a claim like that, a lie like that, does she realize that she's hurting people? Just like when people make the claim that Democrats cheated and Joe Biden's not an illegitimate president and Donald Trump won, then we get something called January 6th. It's the same thing.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. Obi, Happy New Year, my friend. Stay safe out there. And
Thank you. And one last thing.
Sure,
One last thing.
sure.
I want you to know that she is an educated woman. She just fell into the cult, and she can't get
Yeah.
out of it.
yeah, well, you know what? Happy New Year, and I appreciate that information, Obi. Look at that. People tattletelling on other people that call into this show in Miami. I like that. And by the way, I believe Obi. Hey, Julie, stop lying and saying you're a nurse, okay? Just knock it off. You're not spread. You call into a conservative radio show. Sometimes people call in and they lie and they spew propaganda and medical misinformation. It happens right here in Las Vegas. And people allow it. Guess what? I don't. We can disagree. We could have a good, respectful conversation. I do it every day. I'm going to do it tomorrow with somebody in studio. I do it every day with people. The earth is not flat. If Kyrie Irving was sitting right next to me and he started to go on a tangent about the earth being flat, I would cut him off. And I would say, no, the earth is not flat, Kyrie Irving. You have no idea what you're talking about. Let's talk about basketball. Julie, you have no idea what you're talking about. You're spewing lies on the air. It's not tolerated. Again, before we get back to the calls at 702-221-7283, I was listening to the radio the other day. I do that from time to time. And I'm listening to a local radio host in Las Vegas. Not going to mention his name. He's despicable. And every day he goes on the air, he claims that he's the reason why Donald Trump won the election. He lies on the air every day. And he said, quote, "These soccer players are dropping left and right from heart attacks. This never happened before," claiming that the vaccinations killed these athletes. Now, not only is that a lie, but I can give you a laundry list of professional athletes and soccer players that have died on the field from heart attacks way before the COVID vaccine. So not only does this guy have absolutely no idea what he's talking about, and he's a kook. Some people might know who he is when I use that term. Not only does he have no idea what he's talking about, but he's spreading medical misinformation. And shame on the program directors, and shame on the general managers and the people that own these radio stations that allow this type of hatred and rhetoric and worse, medical misinformation. I'm not going to let the Julies of the world call into this show and spread medical misinformation. There are happy people in society out there, kids that are now adults that have had transgender surgery and they're doing just fine. Are there examples of some people that are not doing fine? Sure. It happens with any surgery, anything that takes place. But the idea that if you're a child and you have transgender surgery that you're always going to be suicidal for the rest of your life, it's dangerous rhetoric, and Candace Owens is one of them that spews that hateful rhetoric. By the way, Candace Owens is an opportunist who is still a Democrat but only changed her views so that she could sell her books and make money. And if somebody gave me a Candace Owens book, I would only use it as toilet paper because that's what I think about her and that's what I think about. But the problem is that Candace Owens has a huge platform. People believe what she says. They think she's an extremely intelligent woman and everything she says is true. Just like Donald Trump, there are still people out there in this country that think Donald Trump, never wrong. I can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and they would still support me. It's a joke. It's a joke. And people like Julie are brainwashed, and I feel really sorry for her. But you're not going to spew medical misinformation on this show. We're going to separate fact from fiction. Here's facts. Trump did not win the 2020 election, and there are children out there that have had transgender surgery, and they're not all suicidal. Sorry, Julie, that you can't spell the word fact, but luckily many of my listeners can. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Edward. I believe Edward is next on Pushing Limits. Hi, Edward. What's going on?
Hey, Brian, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, my friend.
Hey, Julie gave me a headache, by the way. Wow. Hey, third of all, I was thinking about what you were saying a few weeks ago, man, about, like, politicians and stuff like that. Like, how it's not cool when they make fun of people or harass them on their looks and stuff like that. And I was going to ask you, Brian, have you ever made fun of somebody or harassed somebody to the point and you got in trouble for it or made fun of their looks?
I'll tell you something. Yes, and I have video to prove it because I was on ESPN and I can play it for you. Maybe I'll play the clip. I was. How did you? Oh, you must have seen it. Yeah, it's. Yes, in the main event of the 2000. Well, you've seen the hand. Yes, I made fun of somebody's haircut, which is very interesting coming from somebody that's bald. But I made fun of his haircut. And listen, we've all made fun of people at one point or another in our lives. I'm not saying it's condoned, but you know, if it's lighthearted, especially at the poker table or you're competing on the basketball court, that is very, very true. But I think we can make a distinction. Sure, okay.
Like 3 days ago.
You know, I think we can make a distinction though between making fun of somebody's haircut and then treating somebody differently because they might be transgender. That's what so many of these...
the guy was awfully quiet.
He
Mr.
was.
Saul was quiet. He flopped 3 kings. You had aces. You got rivered him. Correct.
Unfortunately,
he was very quiet in the video.
I'm glad you know the hand. Unfortunately, 99% of people listening right now have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. But I appreciate the fact that you watched that poker hand. But the point I'm trying to make is a really important one, Edward, and I think you'll agree with me on this.
Yeah, sure.
Is that we've all poked fun at one another from time to time. When you're the president of the United States and you make fun of women on looks, and you basically call women ugly, and you fat shame people, and you attack members of our military because they were captured. When you have a large platform, you could be a president, a former president, and you attack people because they're transgender, and you judge people. You judge people that are gay. This has to stop. This type of behavior needs to be called out.
But you did judge a man on his haircut, on how he looked, his image.
I get it. I get it. I know
you didn't say a word to you. I saw the video.
I get it. I know you're being funny.
And then Zach Ethel had to come get you and tell you you had a 1-round penalty.
Andrew,
and the guy didn't even say anything. Mr. Saul, I saw the video. I watched it.
Andrew, I get it. But Edward, I'm sorry. But the point I'm trying to make is an important one here, and I think you understand what I'm saying, which is when you have a large platform, or even if you're a Julie who claims that you're a nurse, which, by the way, I doubt, and you call into a radio show, you can't spew medical misinformation.
Of course. I get you.
And the people out there that spewed medical misinformation about COVID, shame on them because people lost their lives because of it, especially those people that have large platforms. And I'm tired of it, and I'm sick of it, and I'm not going to listen to people that spew medical misinformation about people that get transgender surgery. I'm not going to allow it. It's not going to happen, at least not on this show.
But, I'll wrap it up. And, I'll ask you, did you end up catching that main event in 2009?
You're still fixated
Did you
on
catch
that.
that?
I did. Yes, I did.
I like the video.
Oh, I
Oh, you
appreciate.
did? Okay, I had to ask.
I appreciate that, Edward. Good to hear from you, my friend. Thanks for calling.
All right, man.
All right, take
All right,
care.
later, dude.
Yeah, not really a poker show that I do here, but I was referencing a poker hand that I was in back in 2009 in the main event where I was on ESPN and I won the hand, and then I made fun of the guy's haircut at the end and I got in trouble for it. They had to sit me in the corner. But listen, there's a lot of unanswered questions to what is, and by the way, the number to call, 702-221-7283, and that number, if you'd like to be a part of the conversation, is 702-221-SAVE. I think besides the election and the Joe Biden, Donald Trump stuff, there's a lot of other important issues in the world that need to be addressed. And my question is, what is going to happen in Ukraine? What is going to happen, and is this war going to end? What is going to happen in Gaza? I think these are very, very important questions, and we're going to get answers. Now, I am hopeful, I am very hopeful, that the war ends in the Ukraine. Innocent people dying every single day. I am also extremely hopeful, but I don't know what the situation is going to be in Gaza. I don't know what the future holds, and I don't know what's going to happen. I would probably be willing to bet that both wars are still going to be happening. I hope I'm wrong. Now, you could make the argument that maybe we've sent too much money to the Ukraine, but I can tell you, in my personal opinion, this is important for the world. Not just Ukraine. This is important to the world. That Vladimir Putin cannot win. Will Vladimir Putin still be the president of Russia? Probably. Probably. What will be the case when it comes to Kim Jong-un? Will he still be at the realms? I would say probably so. But these are all, really important questions. I can give you my predictions, but I don't know for sure what's going to happen here. I have absolutely no idea. But what I can tell you is this. I'm worried. I'm worried about what's going to be taking place here over the next 11, 12 months or so. I'm worried. I'm worried that there's a percentage of people in this country that are brainwashed. We can have differences of opinions, but some of these people are so far out there, they're so brainwashed. Listen, I get it. There are extremists on both sides. But when you talk about the propaganda and you talk about medical misinformation, where is it coming from? Is it coming from the left or the right? I would be willing to bet you most of it's coming from the right. And it's got to stop. And it needs to be called out. And we all have a responsibility in this country that if we hear propaganda, if we see propaganda, if we see people spewing misinformation, you need to call them out for it. No, I'm not condoning violence. I would never say what Donald Trump said, beat that guy up and I'll pay your legal fees. No, I would never do that because I don't condone violence and I never have. But they need to be called out. Now, there's nothing we can do about Elon Musk, at least not now. X is a cesspool of propaganda, hatred, attacks, bigotry. And ever since Elon Musk took over, it's condoned. And I don't know what we can do about that, except what I try to do is these days, I try not to waste my time in debating these people, But at the same time, you need to call out hatred. You need to call out bigotry. You need to call out this type of behavior. And I try to do it on this radio show every single day. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. And, that's just who I am. This is who I am. I'm not always going to be right. You're not always going to agree with my opinions. But, that's kind of the person I am, and it's the radio show I've done for years now. And I will continue to do so. All right, let me give out that number one more time. I know we have some people on hold, so I'll get back to the phone calls. 702-221-7283. And again, that number, 702-221-SAVE, is the number to call. What have we been talking about here? Well, predictions for 2024, the crazy political year that I believe it will be over the course of the next 11 months. We talked about new laws that have been implemented. Those laws including abortion rights for women, raising the minimum wage, and so on. Transgender affirming care, obviously Louisiana and Idaho, the Republican-led states, are disallowing it. And I think it's disgusting. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Gary. Gary is next up on Pushing the Limits. Hi, Gary. What's going on?
Happy New Year, I guess.
Happy New Year.
It's going to be an interesting one. Where's my buddy Justin? I know Doug Basham, he may be a guest once in a while. What do you think? Once in a while, not that I disapprove of your show.
Well, geez, thank you for that. I appreciate that.
About Doug Basham.
Thank God you don't.
Return my text message.
Okay, well, I think you probably should talk to him. I have no idea.
All right, let me ask you something.
Please do.
Do you think the world's becoming a little too overpopulated? Do you think Republicans should be in agreement that we need to send Planned Parenthood and birth control to Mexico and Central American countries instead of just food and money?
Well, if you remember Rush Limbaugh, the late Rush Limbaugh, who I believe was a cancer to the world, he called Sandra Fluke, quote, for lack of a better term, a whore, because Sandra Fluke wanted that to be a part of her health care, birth control, and he called her a whore. So no, I think, and by the way, he was the poster child for the conservative talk radio. So I think you have a lot of Republicans out there that do not respect women. I think you have a lot of people on the far right who are in the concept of anti-birth control.
I never listened to Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah, well, you weren't missing anything. Let me tell you that. Yeah, well, let me tell you, as far as birth control goes, I think it should be covered under every health plan. Women should have free access to birth control, absolutely. And I do believe a woman has the right to choose what she wants to do with her body. I will always believe that. I don't believe in late-term abortion, but I will always believe that. And we know what the evangelical right believes. Just like the Mike Johnsons of the world, they believe in overturning the outcome of a free and fair election. They have their accountability partners because, God forbid, if a 17-year-old kid is looking at porn on the internet, that's far worse than gun violence in this country. Those are what these evangelicals on the right believe. I mean, they're crazy people. I'm sorry, they are. They're lunatics.
If you could predict if a Republican conservative found out that their child has the chromosomes, they're going to be gay. There's a 99% chance. Where's Clinical Call when I need him? He knows about
I think every parent should
be in favor of abortion.
I think that's kind of, I don't think any woman has an abortion because they feel like their kid's going to be gay. I mean, that would be horrible. But I do believe Republicans are hypocrites. Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney, who I do have some respect for Liz Cheney, they were anti-gay, they were anti-gay marriage. And then when they found out that their family member was gay, then all of a sudden they changed their minds. It's the case with so many of these Republicans. Unless it happens to you, you don't change your mind on these really important social issues because many Republicans today are hypocrites.
Hey, can I tell you a secret? In 1965, they talked me into dressing up like a girl for Halloween. And then they wouldn't stop picking on me for weeks after. I still have a complex.
Okay, well, I'm sorry that they... Well, I'm sorry that I appreciate the call, Gary. I'm sorry that somebody made fun of you because you were dressed in drag. For the record, I did that once or twice on Halloween as well. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Again, that number, if you would like to be a part of the conversation, 702-221-SAVE. I've given my predictions at the beginning of the show, and I'll give some of my predictions again. I do believe Joe Biden is going to win the 2024 election. I do believe that Joe Biden will be reelected as president. I do believe that Donald Trump is going to be a convicted felon. I do feel that way. I hope my opinions don't change. If the elections were tomorrow, that's how I feel. I don't care about polls. Basically, every poll said that Hillary Clinton was going to win back in 2016, and they were wrong about that as well. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. Now let's go to Susan. Susan is next on Pushing Limits. Hi, Susan. What's going on?
Hi. I was just wanted to talk about the gender-affirming care.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, my child is non-binary,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't upset me. I didn't disown her. And now she's non-binary, and I accept that. And I think that people who don't are reprehensible. And I think that people should accept transgenders the way they are, because more of them commit suicide if they're not allowed to have the gender affirming care.
Correct, and I tried to explain that to this alleged nurse who called in, and she's 100% wrong. May I ask, how is she doing? Is she not suicidal? Is she doing okay?
Yeah, 100% better.
Well, look at that. Look at that. So people who call into the show that think they know what they're talking about and say they're all suicidal after they get this. Wow. Can you imagine that they're wrong and they have no idea what they're talking about? And I know many of people like, is it your daughter that we're talking about, Susan?
Yeah.
Okay, now your son. Okay, I understand. There are many stories like yours. Good parents, you sound like a good parent, who are supportive of your kids. And guess what? I don't want the government to get involved. God knows what would have happened to your child if the government got involved, or if you were living in Idaho or Louisiana and they said, can't have the surgery, can't have these medications. I mean, God knows where would your child be now?
Probably suicidal.
Exactly.
Not dead.
Exactly. And I'm glad that didn't happen, and I'm glad the government didn't get involved. But boy, these Republicans, if they had it their way, abortion would be illegal across the country, and there'd be no transgender surgeries or gender affirming care for anybody under the age of 18. They're crazy. These far right Republicans are nuts. And I'm glad your child is doing well. I really am.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I also wanted to mention something. I think you used the word mesmerized too much.
Well, I might. I use some words too much. I use MAGA moron a lot too. When some of these clowns call into this show, I mean, there are things that I would use that I can't say on the air because I get in trouble. Let me just put it that way. But they're clowns. They're buffoons. I haven't used that word yet today. They are buffoons, and they lie. They have no sense of reality. They are complicit. Many of them uneducated. And ladies and gentlemen, that is Donald Trump's base. I'm not saying every single Donald Trump supporter feels that way or is that, but the overwhelming majority of Donald Trump supporter today in 2024 are buffoons. Yes, I'm going to say that.
Yeah. I have family members that will vote for Trump because they hate Biden so much, not because they think Trump will be good. And I think that's a very dangerous...
Well, here's what I want you to do. I want you to ask them, because I have conversations like this every day on and off the air. Why do you hate Joe Biden? Gives me a specific policy. They'll probably say Hunter Biden's laptop, and then you say accordingly, Hunter's never been a politician and there's no evidence that Joe Biden committed a crime. Then they'll talk about inflation, and then, explain to them that we had inflation throughout the world. If you think it was Joe Biden's fault, then name me several policies. They'll talk about the gas prices, and then you could respond by saying the oil refineries in this country have made record profits under Joe Biden. Would you call that corporate greed? They don't know what to say. It's very easy to defeat these people that think Joe Biden is such a horrible, horrible president. It's not hard to have these discussions with people, and it's very easy to shoot down, for lack of a better term, everything that they say. And then there are certain people that are not even smart enough to have those types of conversations. Those are the deplorables. Yeah.
Well, their main concern is that they don't like the social programs that
Right.
Biden put out.
Yeah. Ask them exactly what those social programs are. Ask them, did you have a problem with what Joe Biden and Jon Stewart did in passing these laws to help our brave men when we in uniform get health care? Do you have a problem with these gun laws that Joe Biden put on the books to try to make this country a little bit safer? I would ask them about those social issues and see what they think about that. It's easy. I have these conversations every day. I'm becoming a pro at it, destroying these MAGA supporters, Susan. And you're a smart lady, so you shouldn't have a problem with it either. Hey, I'm glad your child is doing well. Keep up the good work. You sound like a wonderful mom, and I appreciate your call, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Good to hear from you. Happy New Year to you. 702, thank you. Bye-bye. 702-221-7283. Who do we have? Okay. 702-221-7283. So I'll close in saying this. I hope that you all are safe out there this year. Doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. It shouldn't matter whether you're a MAGA supporter or not. I don't want innocent people to die. I don't want hatred out there in our society. I don't always want it to be Republican versus Democrat. But we have a very important decision to make in November. Are you going to vote for somebody that wants to rip up our Constitution? Are you going to vote for somebody that wants to use 4 years as retribution for everybody that he doesn't like? Are you going to vote for somebody that's only in it for himself, that is a criminal or will be a convicted felon? Or do you want to vote for somebody that maybe you might think is too old, but has our best interest at heart? Maybe you don't think Joe Biden is as vibrant as he's been in years past, and you'd probably be right about that. But maybe vote for the man that has empathy for others. Maybe vote for the man that talks about human loss, talks about our brave men in uniform in a positive note on a daily basis, talks about what it was like to lose his son, to lose his first wife, and to lose his child. Or you can vote for the orange turd. It's up to you, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very definitive and important vote that we are going to be making, hopefully, in November. And I'm telling you right now, if Donald Trump wins, the idea of what this country was founded on about a democracy, freedoms and democracy, and every vote counts, will be wiped away. Why? Because of the people that Donald Trump will have in his administration, not just Donald Trump, the Mike Lindells of the world. He'll pardon, people around him that are convicted felons. And there will be no democracy. It won't be left. I don't want to end up like North Korea. I don't want to look like Russia. And I do believe that if Donald Trump is reelected in office at the end of this year, that we could be looking at that. Joe Biden is not perfect. I would never make that claim. He's probably too old. But I'll take him over Donald Trump any day of the week. It's a very low bar. I will take Donald Trump, anybody over Donald Trump for the most part in this country. Before we take a break, tomorrow on the show, Jay Bloom is one of the biggest Democrat donors in the world. He's a billionaire. But it appears as though his family is going to be supporting Robert F. Kennedy Jr. His son, Sean Bloom, is a social media influencer. He's buddies with Elon Musk and many others in Washington, D.C. His son said that he would vote for Trump over Joe Biden. His son is supporting Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's going to be joining us in studio tomorrow, and I am going to be picking his brain on a number of different issues because I don't get it. But I want to try to understand why somebody in his early 20s would vote for Donald Trump over Joe Biden. I don't understand. So Sean Bloom's going to be joining us in studio tomorrow. Like I said, his father's one of the biggest, he's been on this show before, his father Jay, one of the biggest Democrat donors on the planet. So we'll talk to Sean, his son, who's got like 5 million followers on Instagram, by the way. He'll be joining us in studio tomorrow. And I also appreciate everybody that has been joining me on the Occupy Democrats Network. TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. I appreciate all the comments. I'm probably most interactive with the fans of the show on Twitter, which is at PTL Radio Show. So if you want to hit me up on Twitter, that's probably where I'll be most interactive with you. You could also subscribe to my YouTube page where I broadcast 2 hours a day for free on YouTube, which is at PTL Radio Show. If you would like to be watching on there, I put a lot of content on there as well. And I appreciate all of you for watching, even my very special MAGA supporters. I appreciate you watching as well. And especially those that are willing to call into the show and have a discussion with me. All right. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Chris Wynn's going to be joining us live from a UNLV basketball game, and it's a mystery who they're playing. We'll find out who they're playing coming up next. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. It's Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Buying or selling a home is a huge life event that requires guidance from an expert in the industry and community. My name is Blake Wynn. You may recognize my name as my grandfather was the best governor the state of Nevada has ever had. Growing up in Las Vegas, I've come to know this community intricately. Now, I am raising a family here as well. So I understand all the issues impacting our home and quality of life. As the top realtor for the #1 real estate team at Keller Williams, you can have confidence in my experience, knowledge, and track record. When it comes to buying, selling, or investing in real estate, choose a name you can trust and someone who understands the community you call home. Call Blake Gwynn today and experience the difference of a trusted expert. 702-540-3311.
Hey everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits, the fastest growing radio show in the Valley. And now we've expanded our reach to include live stream ads on social media with over 20,000 daily views. So are you ready to take your business to the next level? Then get in on the action. Our team will put together